Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've ever felt that paralyzing, heart racing fear right before walking up to talk to someone you're romantically interested in, well, first of all, I want you to know you are completely normal. It's terrifying, right? But what if I told you we could entirely demystify this whole intimidating process? Today, we're going to break down the complex social dynamics of approaching someone. And we're not relying on cheap, sleazy tricks here. We are looking at pure science, psychology, and hard data. So get ready, because we are going to equip you with a really fascinating toolkit. Okay, let's dive into this. Structuring our learning today around these specific categories is going to make mastering this social dynamic highly digestible. First up, the science of approaching, and then the three big approaches: the innocuous approach, the direct approach, and finally, the cute-flippant approach. All right, section 1, the science of approaching, overcoming the fear. We have to start by acknowledging that universal anxiety of talking to someone you like, and we'll use a clear problem solution framework to figure it out. So your brain just starts spinning, overthinking literally every possible outcome. Which brings us to the ultimate million-dollar question. How do you approach someone without being creepy? Think about it for a second. The main fear most of us have isn't actually just the fear of basic rejection. No, the paralyzing fear is that you're going to cross a line, come off as weird, and make the other person genuinely uncomfortable. That word, creepy, is the absolute ultimate barrier we're going to learn how to bypass today. Fortunately for us, social psychologist Chris Klinka and his colleagues made an absolutely incredible discovery. They found that literally every single romantic approach fits perfectly into one of three specific categories. Just knowing this instantly lowers the stakes. The whole process is way less overwhelming when you realize, hey, it's not infinite chaos. There are really only three scientific ways to do it. The key to absolute success is simply matching the right approach category to your own natural personality. Let's move to our first category and see how this builds. Section 2, the innocuous approach, the safe route. So this is the lowest risk option. It involves opening the conversation with a totally non-flirtatious statement or question. This could be something as safe and mundane as asking for the Wi-Fi password, or maybe something slightly more engaging like, hey, I need a woman's opinion. Do girls actually like flowers? And this brilliantly illustrates why starting safely is just so effective. Take a look at this data. When looking at why women reject approaches, it completely shatters that common myth that physical looks are everything. Actually, scratch that. Looks aren't even the main factor. A staggering 84% of rejections are due to social turnoffs, fear of harm or just socially inappropriate behavior, rather than exclusively physical attractiveness, which accounts for just 16%. That's huge. So how do we physically walk up to someone without triggering those massive social turnoffs? Well, there's this incredible 2019 study where researchers actually tried to socially calibrate a robot to approach humans without being creepy. It's kind of like a giant puzzle of personal space. By testing those boundaries, they discovered humans feel really uneasy when approached directly from the front and very uneasy from the back. But just like calibrating that robot's spatial awareness, they found that approaching a human from the side makes them feel, well, pretty chill and comfortable. But wait, it's not just how you approach physically, it's where you do it. A really fascinating 2025 study on setting appropriateness proved that location actually matters even more than the attractiveness of the approacher, at least up to a certain point. Context is literally everything. A party, a bar, or the beach? Fantastic, hit the nail on the head. But travel hubs, libraries, and obviously, please no, funerals, those are highly inappropriate and will automatically trigger that 84% rejection rate we just talked about. Now, even if you approach from the side in a totally appropriate location, let's face it, people today are overwhelmed. To stand out and lower their guard, you can use concepts from Erich von Markovich's The Mystery Method. Two big ones are rooting and time constraints. Rooting is basically proving you only want a simple answer. A time constraint is proving you won't bother them for very long, like, hey, I only have a quick second, but by utilizing these two psychological tools, you completely bypass their defensive barriers simply because you're proving you aren't trying to waste their time or hold them hostage in an awkward conversation. All right, let's shift the energy to category 2, the direct approach, the bold route. So in this high-risk, high-reward approach, you openly state your interest right off the bat. You might use a general compliment or maybe a highly niche compliment based on something they've clearly put a lot of effort into, like noticing how beautifully they match their clothes with their shoes. But wait, there is a massive evolutionary caveat here. Research conducted by social psychologist Monica Moore reveals a fascinating reality. Women are actually the ones who initiate the courtship process. Yeah, they do this via subtle cues like smiles, glances, or flipping their hair long before the man ever approaches. Therefore, just marching right up and directly stating you like someone is usually evolutionarily counterproductive, unless you're actively responding to the subtle cues they have already sent your way. So the crucial point here really comes down to a tiny fraction, 0.1 seconds. A 2006 study proved that this is exactly how fast people form a first opinion of you. Think about how staggering that is. 1/10 of a second. That is entirely too quick to talk your way into a good impression. Your words literally don't matter yet because the judgment has already been made in the blink of an eye. Because zero point 0.1 seconds is way too fast for words, you have to hijack those first impressions using biological body language hacks. Just look at the animal kingdom. From peacocks and gorillas to cats and reptiles, males make themselves look bigger to impress. It's hardwired into us, so straighten your back and widen your shoulders to take up more space. Second, do not block your vulnerable ventral torso by defensively crossing your arms or clutching a drink tightly against your chest. Keep those arms open. And finally, maintain strong, confident eye contact to project perceived confidence. And that perfectly sets us up for our third and final category, the cute-flippant approach, the playful route. When you use this approach, you're playfully teasing someone to show your interest. You're acting fun and spontaneous rather than intensely serious. But you really need to tread carefully here. In the original study, this playfully teasing approach was actually rated as the most disliked by women. The reason makes total sense, though. Prepared, canned pickup lines feel incredibly superficial and cheap. If you sound like you're delivering a generic joke about them being a parking ticket because they have "fine" written all over them, well, it completely backfires because it totally lacks genuine human connection. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can look at a historical anecdote from the British Regency era to see how to do this right. Enter Beau Brummel. Back then, men just showed off titles and money, right? They'd repeat the same polished, boring lines about politics to every noble lady. Brummel didn't have money, so he relied entirely on his observation skills to spark real conversations. He famously said, "If people turn to look at you in the street, you are not well dressed." He relied on sharp wit and keen observation over generic bragging, and it literally made him the most sought-after guest in town. The ultimate takeaway for the flippant approach is exactly what Beau Brummel mastered. True success relies on the keen observation of small details to spark real situational fun rather than desperately trying to impress someone with a prepared line. You just have to ditch the rehearsed script. If this category naturally matches your personality, your goal should just be to pay deep, close attention to the present moment and genuinely have fun with the interaction. So, we've explored the 3 scientific categories, the absolute importance of spatial awareness, and the incredible power of biological body language. But as this final slide asks, now that you've mastered the science of the approach, how will you calibrate your social skills to keep the conversation going? Getting your foot in the door is really just the beginning of the whole shebang. I challenge you to take these scientific principles, observe the world around you, and continue exploring the brilliant, complicated psychology of human connection.